I love Ocarina of Time. I stopped playing it because life got in the way and because the original hasn't aged brilliantly visually. I've now found a way to experience it that fits into my life and I'm enjoying it all over again. Zelda Ocarina of Time is one of my favourite childhood games. Easily the first 3D game that I played on the N64 and 3D game in general. And I haven't had the opportunity to revisit Zelda Ocarina of Time since it came out on the 3DS, which was the last time that I fully completed the game. And I have dabbled with it a few times since it has come out on emulation on Switch 1 and Switch 2. But to say that that's pretty underwhelming would be a understatement because it's pretty bad. And I think the reason why I just haven't committed to it is because the game just hasn't aged well and the accessibility to it is just not great outside of Switch 1, Switch 2, and of course emulation. But with the upcoming remake literally round the corner, it has really made me want to go back to the game because I think there's always going to be this looming thought that the remake won't be as good as the original. And it won't capture that same magic in a bottle that the original game captured for me when I was little. And I suppose there's like this deep feeling inside me where I want to recapture the magic and replay Zelda Ocarina of Time before the remake comes out so that there are no bad feelings if the remake doesn't quite hit my expectations. And like, this isn't just some random retro game that I'm testing. I genuinely have deep love for Zelda Ocarina of Time. It's widely considered one of the best games of all time. But the reality is that if you played it when you were little, or even if you haven't played it and you played it now, if you could look past the graphics and maybe some of the clunkiness in comparison to modern games, I'd be very, very surprised if you don't find the magic that we've all got from Zelda Ocarina of Time if you've played it before. But you're probably thinking, but if you love this game so much, mate, then why haven't you played it yet? The reality is that life's kind of different now in 2026. I'm an adult, I've got responsibilities, I'm a dad, I've got children. Finding a block of uninterrupted time to sit and play a dedicated game is not easily found these days, put it that way. And yeah, technically I could go to the shed and dig out the N64 and get it out, but let's be real, my modern TV hasn't got a SCART plug on it, and it definitely hasn't got the audio leads, and it's gonna look absolutely naff on a 4K TV. So all of the tinkering and the effort to get it working, and I'm pretty sure my N64 controllers are completely busted. Let's be real, it ain't gonna be an experience that anybody wants to go through. You know it's there and you might wanna drag it out and go for it, but the reality is it ain't gonna be a fun experience and the barrier to entry is massive. The barrier to entry just going to the shed is big enough for me, let alone digging out an old console and trying to connect it to a modern TV. And so the game has just become less accessible because time and lives have changed so much since Zelda Ocarina of Time was originally released. And the graphics, like I said, they have not aged well. There is a bit of a charm from the 2D era of SNES games that I just don't think N64 gets away with. The games do look old, they do look rough around the edges, and that's before we even get into the controls of them. Obviously, early 3D is just completely different to the original 2DS. It was in its infancy in terms of where it was going to go like today. So I think back then it was an absolute marvel in graphical accomplishment, but in today's standards, the age of it is so noticeable, and it does take you out of the immersion when you've got modern games today that just look so beautiful in comparison, that going back to the N64, it's hard to just capture that charm that it had when you were a child. And so that's why I just think the N64 era it really looks rough now, and it's really obvious. And that became even more obvious when I tried to show my kids it, and they have been spoiled by modern visualization. The Switch 2's Mario Kart looks fantastic. Even games on iPads now look insane. So it does break your heart as a father that just loves Zelda Ocarina of Time to show your kids it and them just be like, not interested because visually it isn't capturing them. They are already spoiled, unfortunately. But Being 2026, I have discovered that there are modern ways to play Zelda Ocarina of Time. In my case, playing it on the Lenovo Legion Go 2 with the fantastic OLED screen and 144Hz, slapping on a 4K texture pack, that high refresh rate and smooth presentation. Honestly, it honestly doesn't look like the same game that it did on the N64. I really can't stress enough just how amazing the OLED screen and 4K texture pack on this game really brings it to life and allows you to look past the bad graphics that take you out of the immersion. And that's the important bit, right? We're not sitting here dissing Zelda Ocarina of Time. I'm sure people can look past the graphics, but for me, it takes me out of the immersion. It makes it harder for my kids to be interested in it. But you do these upgrades and it's almost like you're playing a different game, but you're capturing that same magicalness that you had when you were a child, sitting there probably cross-legged on the floor, close to the TV, watching Zelda Ocarina of Time. And it does really feel like I'm experiencing the game rather than simply preserving an old piece of hardware. But the biggest win of all is playing it on a handheld. The accessibility, once you get it set up, is just amazing. You turn on your handheld, you could be on the couch, you could be in bed, you could be in the living room, you can have it connected to the PC, you could have it connected to your living room TV, you could have it connected to a portable monitor, whatever you may want. And what's even better about it is if you've only got 20 minutes, because the barrier to entry is so small and you can just play it wherever, you're more likely to pick it up and actually get through the game. You can put it down, put it in standby mode and come back to it later. You don't need like a dedicated entire evening to play it. And I think that's kind of, because I love getting into games so much, I know I want a good couple of hours to make a dent in gaming. But modern life today doesn't allow me to do that. So I need to accept the fact, hey, you're not gonna be able to do that, pal. You're gonna have to get in 20 minutes here and there, wherever you can, and just accept that that's the way forward. And you know what? Handheld allows you to do exactly that. And so now that you've got the barrier to entry out of the way, you've got the 4K texture pack, you've got it on a handheld, well, the game is exactly as you remember it. The exploration, being able to pick up and remember exactly where things are when you originally played the game. It's just insane that information is just stored right in the back of your head, knowing where the bottle is for Zora so that you can help make her dad oink across the screen. And I'll never stop laughing at that moment. And knowing that you need to capture a fish earlier from underground so that you can throw it out, or you could have been one of those rare people that paid 200 rupees in the Zora shop for a fish, because I can tell you for now, I never did that. I'm pretty sure I never did that. And so there are these little nuggets of where you would have spent hours and hours on this game trying to figure some of this stuff out, and your leverage of how long it would take you to figure this out could be completely different to somebody else's. And that's what's so beautiful about Ocarina of Time. Navi will give you a little bit of a prompt or a nudge every now and then in the right direction, but you were never handheld in this game. Like, you were sort of roughly given the path or the area that you needed to go to, but you could explore and spend time messing around and do what you wanted as much as you wanted, and you wouldn't progress the story until you came back to that point and figured it out. And that was the beauty of it. You were allowed to go off and do something and come back. Yes, obviously going back to it and now knowing what you need to do, i.e. not spending hours trying to find the hook shot because it's hidden in a grave when you're adult Link. Yeah, those moments, they are quality. And it's just like you just instantly know where you need to go in the game. And there is something that's kind of like this charm to it as well. Like, yes, it does remove some of the exploration that you would have wasted time back in the day, but it also kind of gives you that like pat on the back to say, hey, I actually remembered that after all these years. So when you put this 4K pack over it, what do the kids think? Well, they're interested now because it looks nice. And they see your passion, you playing it. They want to get involved with it as well. And my kids are only 6 and 3, right? So my leverage with how much they're engaging with it is probably less than a child that's a bit older. But my 6-year-old is definitely paying way more attention to it, which is amazing to see. And I don't think I would have captured as much interest from her if I hadn't been able to upscale the resolution the way that I've been able to. And with the upcoming remake just round the corner, does that really change how I feel about playing the original? And the answer really is that No, it doesn't make me change it, because now I can play the original in an modern way as I can, and it still captures the exact same magic. It's completely outside of what the remake is, because if the remake is bad or doesn't capture the same thing I want to go back and play the original in its original state is not going to be ideal, because there's still going to be that element where the remake is going to just look better than the original. Whereas I think that adding 4K texture packs actually reduces that gap significantly. So really, the remake can be whatever it wants to be. It's not going to change how I feel about the original, and isn't going to stop me being able to play it today in 2026. And as we know, when they remade or remastered the 3DS versions, specifically on Majora's Mask, which I won't go into detail because we're not talking about that today, they did a few things in there that kind of sucked, that made the game a lot easier than it needed to be, and some questionable changes that were quite irritating. It's been well documented online. And so for me, this might be the most definitive way you can play Zelda Ocarina of Time in 2026. 4K texture pack on an OLED if possible, with smooth performance, ideally portable, with insane frame rates that the original game never achieved, with a pick up and play approach that fits around family and busy lifestyles, and that kids can actually appreciate if they're in your life, that doesn't require dragging out old hardware and trying to figure out how to connect it to modern devices. Then you can actually just play the game again with no barrier, basically, to entry. I don't know if this is the best way to play Ocarina of Time for everybody. I can't say that for sure. But for me, as a dad who doesn't have the time I used to have, I think I've finally found a way to really play it again and capture that magic as close to how I did when I was that little boy playing Zelda Ocarina of Time. And honestly, I'm absolutely loving it. And that's why I had to produce this video and show you just how much you can still relive love for an old title in 2026. This video was sponsored by absolutely nobody.